Hi, Misha here. And for anyone who's been following my personal channel, this video shouldn't be at all a surprise. This is on the Battlestar Pegasus, which was the command vessel of the battle group BS62. And this is, of course, from the reimagined Battlestar Galactica series that we first saw in 2003 and that wrapped up in 2009. Although, of course, this wasn't in the original miniseries. This appeared first in the episode in Season 2, aptly named Pegasus. And would appear until Season 3, and then in the Razor movie, so on and so forth. This is, of course, an Eaglemoss model. They're doing these pretty large scale Battlestar Galactica models, and this is issue number 8, so the 8th one in the series to date. 7 was the original Galactica Battlestar from the 1978 and 1980 series. That was issue 7, and also on the table we have issue 3, which was the Galactica from the Reimagined series. They've also done the Viper Mark 1, Viper Mark 2, Viper Mark 7 for Colonial Fighters, and for the Cylons, they're being kind of underrepresented so far, but people, including myself, tend to like the Colonial ships more. Anyway, they do have the Cylon Base Star and the Cylon Raider. So there are some, but 6 out of the 8 we've seen so far have been Colonial. But that's alright. These are die-cast models. At least the main bodies tend to be die-cast, and then the finer details, like for example the flight pods, are plastic polymer. Anyway, the Pegasus here caught me kind of off guard. They've been releasing these about one every 2 months. And they just released issue 7. Honestly, I got this one just under a month ago. And mine was a wee bit late because the credit card I initially had put it on pre-order with expired in March, and apparently Eaglemoss is one of those companies that thinks cards expire at the 1st of the month, not the 31st of the month. It was fun because I called Visa and they said, oh, well, it doesn't expire till the 31st. And I wanted to say, well, tell that to them because they're saying it's expired. Anyway, I had to call in, give them a new credit card. It was a very easy process, no complaints, but it meant mine shipped about a week later. Anyway, I still got it 3 weeks ago, meaning that these have been out for about a month. And then all of a sudden the Pegasus gets released a couple of weeks ago. And what's funny too, usually with these, they will be on the website as kind of a pre-order for several weeks, a month, even longer. This never really had a pre-order status. It just popped up as in stock, essentially. And so, obviously, I ordered it, and it came today. Actually, my luck held. It wasn't supposed to be here until Friday, the 19th, but it showed up Wednesday, the 17th. So it's kind of funny because I looked at the tracking Tuesday and it was still showing it in Texas, and somehow it got all the way from Texas to the distributing center up here in Arkansas and out to my post office. So it was a pleasant surprise to find it on the porch. I just thought you'd enjoy the story. Well, the Pegasus is a Mercury class battlestar, which was one of the most advanced classes in the Colonial Fleet, and it was kind of a prized position to be on. It is larger than the reimagined Galactica. The reimagined ship there, just going off memory, is about 4,750 feet long, so it's a big girl. But the Pegasus here is just a little under 5,900 feet long. I believe it's like 5,870 to 5,872, depending on which source. It's also quite a bit wider than the Galactica, and its flight pods do not retract. They are fixed. In fact, it's said that this was the first ship in the Colonial Fleet to have fixed flight pods. Speaking of, obviously it has two pods like the Galactica, but the Galactica only had 2 flight decks. This actually has staggered flight decks for a total of 4, so 2 flight decks per pod. In addition, on the sides of the pods, it has additional docking bays and whatnot for Raptors. So they're much more advanced flight pods. It has 8 sublight engines in the back instead of the 6 found on Galactica. The Galactica over there had a crew of up to 5,000 during the first Cylon War when it was introduced, and then down to about 3,500 post-war, and even a little less than that following the decommissioning. Whereas the Pegasus here had a maximum crew of only 2,500, and that could be down to 17 to 1,800 depending on what it was up to. And the reason it was much less, even though the craft was bigger, was it was much more automated. Had more computer systems. It was just a more advanced craft in general. It had advanced water and food reclamation systems. And it was able to stay out for at least 5 years without resupply. Even more interesting, it actually had the ability to manufacture new Vipers, Mark 7s, and we actually see this very much on screen in the series, so it's not just something that was added after the fact. It is very much canon. So that's interesting. Speaking of cannons, it has 34 primary, lots of point defense. It has 16 missile bays. It is capable of launching nuclear weapons, of course. I still haven't really been able to find for sure how many Vipers were stationed on the Galactica, but for the Pegasus, actually, it's pretty easy. Full complement would be 160 Vipers plus 40 in reserve, so a total of up to 200 Vipers. And also up to 50 Raptors. So it's pretty stacked. Now remember, Vipers are relatively nimble, sleek, thin craft, so they're designed to be stacked. So it has more armor than the Galactica. On the other hand, its firing arcs for its primary weapons aren't quite as versatile as Galactica's. So there is that minor advantage to the old Galactica versus this Mercury class. So yeah. Oh, there's a little bit of foam. Like I said, I just took it out earlier today. So anyway, I can keep going on about the stats of the ship, but you can look those up. The model itself is quite nice. I still think I like the original TOS, if you will, the most. But that's just because, one, it's classic, and why not? And two, it's got mostly metal components. This, because it's more of a CGI, to get all the detail in, they had to use more polymer. It is a heavy-duty model, though. Like this front so-called alligator's head is quite weighty. The bottom is polymer. Top is metal. Top here is metal. Bottom might be too. No, I think it's polymer. So the metal is the top part here, with the bottom being the polymer. Of course, the engines are polymer, flight pods. Now, comparing that to our first in the release here, our Galactica is mostly polymer. It's definitely the lightest of these. The spine is metal, kind of the main bit, but then most of what's left is the polymer. So the original here is our heaviest, most metal, and then Pegasus is quite hefty, and then Galactica is our lightest, which is funny. Scaling wise, looking at the flight pod openings, it seems like the Galactica is slightly larger scale. Again, because in the universe, it would be a wee bit smaller than the Pegasus. And really, in reality, they're about the same size. Pegasus is of course bigger volume-wise, but length-wise, it's about the same. So it's a slightly scaled down, but not too badly. The design of the ship is interesting because it actually has closer resemblance, as you can see, to our original. Than the Galactica here. But of course it does have some modern elements. It's just, I think it's interesting that it really harkens back to the old school Galactica, which is probably why so many people like it. Yet it has its own kind of unique appearance. Of course it does have the alligator's head, like the Galactica, whereas our original is very flat-headed. Just kind of fun. They definitely kind of combined and contrasted. The original does have the 3 pylons connecting each pod, as does the Pegasus. But of course our Galactica just has the 2 pylons and the pods retract. It's the only one of the 3 where the pods go in. So I think this is one of the last of the major colonial military ships for our collection. And we have the 3 major Battlestars. I would still like to see the Battlestar Valkyrie, but I don't know if we will, because that's pretty minor compared to many other ships. I figure the next colonial ship we'll see will either be a Raptor or Colonial 1. And it would be good to get some more Cylon ships just to kind of balance things out. But yeah, I'm really impressed with this came out so quickly. I figured it'd be May or even June before we saw the Pegasus, but I'm happy to be wrong, because it's one I really been waiting on and thought would be neat to have, and the model does not disappoint. Really none of these have. I enjoy them. Anywho, last thing I can say is the stands. The original Galactica here, it sits fine, but it's just kind of in a little trough, and it will slip off, especially if you don't have it quite seated properly. With the newer two, they've really improved that. They have little tines, little prongs that go up for the Galactica here. And I think the best so far is the Pegasus stand. It doesn't, I mean, you can easily lift it off, but it's not going to fall off accidentally. You'd have to really try. It's a really good stand. I've heard some people complain about the Eaglemoss stands. I actually really like them. You get a nice weighted base. Sometimes these little clear plastic holders will be loose in the base. Just a little tack, a little blue tack in there will make them as tight as you want, so that's not a problem. And I like that it makes it easy to get the ships on and off. You don't have to unscrew, unclip, unclamp something. And they seem pretty resilient. They have enough flex that if you need to, you can spread them out or smush them in without worrying about cracking them. But I really just like that the bases are weighted. I have other models, and a lot of times the bases are just hollow plastic, and the models weigh quite a bit more, and they make me nervous. These, though, at least they have equal weight or more or less to the thing they're holding, and I don't know, they feel good. They're resin, and they've got kind of a felt bottom, and they do put the name, and usually, I believe with most all their stuff, a unique serial number. I don't know what mine is, of course. I haven't actually asked anyone to tell me, but maybe you guys can see. I don't really care about the numbers. I just like having them. But yeah, I just wanted to say they're getting better and better with their bases. I would say the same holds true for the Vipers. The Viper Mark II is kind of a little precarious and a little trough, but the Mark I and the Mark VII sit very nicely. So good on them. Alrighty, folks. Well, I really appreciate you tuning in. And I'm starting kind of a new series looking at real-world craft, including some from NASA. So if you like space travel and history, you might want to check that out if you're bored. Any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. And as always, if you could, like, share, and subscribe, and check out our main channel over at Mishaco. Well, this is Misha. I appreciate you tuning in. And I'm going to catch you very soon next time.